So I'm sitting here with, I'm sitting, you're standing, with Morgan Ågren. Is that how you pronounce your name, or Ågren?
Well, in Sweden we say Morgan Ågren, and in English we say, I guess, Morgan Ågren.
Ågren. And in Halmstad, where I live, we say Morgan.
Exactly. Which is not correct, but yeah.
I don't know, it's not correct. You can't name your child Morgan in Halmstad. So before we start, like, could you introduce yourself to the ones watching? Just who are you, and a little bit about yourself, and a brief summation of your career, sort of.
Sure. My name is Morgan Ågren, as we just said, and I'm a drummer, musician, and I'm 55 to date years old, and I'm from Sweden, north part of Sweden, a city called Umeå, and I make a living as a drummer, which I have been doing since I finished ground school, basically. So I play with my own bands and side projects. I record, I do various things, and some of the stuff I've been doing is with my own band called Mats and Morgan Band, which I have together with the blind keyboard player Mats Öberg, and we played together for 40 years. We celebrated 40 years just like 2 years ago, 1.5 years ago. We released a big box set to celebrate the fact that we played together for 40 years, because we started in 81. So me and Matt's been playing together since he was 10 and I was 14, which can be shown inside this box. You can see, like, this is so that this is my the main thing, how do you say, my project in life, you can say. But it's not everything I did is not, I mean, I did a lot of other things. Last couple of years I've been touring a lot with a guy named Devin Townsend, which is a great vocalist and well known in the metal scene, and he started to sing with Steve Vai in the 90s, and he had his own band, Strapping Young Lad, and things like that. So we did a lot of work together last couple of years, especially before the pandemic. And what else? I grew up I moved to Stockholm in 85, 86. I started to play with many bands here in Stockholm, bands like Fleshquartet and Fredrik Thordendal and many different things, and what else?
Feels like there's something in the water in Umeå, because I've talked to Dennis Lyxzén. He's from Umeå also, isn't he? From north of Sweden. And Mats Gustafsson is also from up north, at least. I don't know if it's Umeå, but something like that.
Same. He's from Umeå, as well as my brother and Meshuggah and a lot of people. So
yeah. It has to be something in the water, or is it?
I think it's. I would say it's still a coincidence, because for me, I think Umeå we have a very good jazz festival, which is still around, very good one, and it's been around since I was a kid, and there's a lot of musicians for some reason that grows up in Umeå, so you get to meet people early if you're interested in music. But I don't think Umeå has like a super like creative music scene where you can see a lot of music happening all the time. That's not the case, I think. So I don't know how it came to be. Like, people also often say that, because there must be something with the water in Umeå, because this and this band and this musician comes from there, and I think it's more of a coincidence. And to some level, maybe, the more up north you go, the less options you have to spend your time doing I mean, it's
Yeah.
you have to do something because the city doesn't offer tons of other stuff, you know. So you might be just doing nothing, or you might do something,
Yeah.
so it gets boring doing nothing because the city doesn't offer you anything. So then you might just decide to do something instead of just sitting and doing nothing, you know. So there's not much that distracts you, if I say that.
No. No. Did you just go out on a sort of a clinic or a tour or something with people from Magma, or am I
Yeah, not a clinic, but Magma is also one of my as you know, when I grew up listening to Frank Zappa and King Crimson and all these bands, Magma was for sure one of those bands. And when I did my TV shows, like this, you know, drum education thing that was on Swedish national TV called Tram. In each episode, I showed the vinyl, like recommendations, albums to listen to, and of course, I included some Magma albums there. And this was in 2001, and those videos. This is almost before YouTube. YouTube started, but it wasn't even close to what it is today. But somehow those videos was copied, and not on YouTube, but like VHS copies, and some of those tapes ended up at some members of Magma, and finally they ended up with Christian, the founder of Magma. And so, and they understood quite easily that I liked them, and I showed Magma album covers on Swedish national TV. So they knew about me, and we played quite a lot in France, like mid 2005, around there. We played many shows with Mats in France, and we bumped into, when we played, there was always some members from Magma coming to our gigs, and little by little I started to meet up with Christian, and they had a anniversary concert in Paris in year 2000, and that was the first time I met him, and then we met again at some other festivals. So little by little we became friends, and at some point I told the Modern Drummer magazine that they should take the opportunity to use me as a connection to Christian, because I happen to know that they never interviewed Christian, like, ever.
okay.
And he is a super big character. I mean, and how is it even possible that they never wrote about him, you know? So I told him, you should really. Magma celebrated 30 years anniversary in 2000, and I happen to know the guy now, and maybe, do you want me to fix this for you? I asked them. And that was also an excuse to meet Christian again, of course, you know. So they said yes. I met him again, and we became more friends. And then only like 5 years ago or something, Stella, the vocalist, one of the vocalists in Magma, she called me just out of the blue and asked me if I would be happy to come down to Paris and record with Magma as a drummer, because obviously Christian is the drummer in Magma, but they had plans to record an old piece called Ses, which is like a 30 minutes piece, and Christian sings on the whole piece, and they wanted to do like a live recording, but inside the studio. So there will be a vocal booth, drum booth, and stuff like that. So he won't play and drum at the same time, which he never did in the past either, in this specific case. Sometimes he sings and he sits down and plays, and he stands up and sings, but this is like only vocals. So they asked me to come down and record because Christian will sing, and that was a super big honor, because it's not, I mean, a phone call like that doesn't really happen, because they also, in the case of Magma, they have been such an incredibly mythic band, and it's hard to, I mean, it's easier to get a gig with Rolling Stones than Magma. Or it's easier to get a gig with whoever, you know, but Magma is like on another planet or something.
But it feels like the perfect marriage. Like you're attitude towards the instrument and Magma's music sounds like sort of the perfect marriage in one way.
Well, at least when it comes to my, it's an honest. It's the stuff I did with them has nothing to do with work. It has nothing to do with income, or it's just something. It's like an old teenage dream that happened. So it's so yeah, just to meet them and become friends with them is it's a super cool thing. So of course I agreed to do that. So I went down to Paris and I recorded this album, and like a year after, we performed also this piece live. It is in this big concert hall in Paris, Pierre Boulez Concert Hall, and they played a couple of other pieces, but they also included this 30 minutes piece after the break, I think. So they played a lot of other stuff, but then they played this 30-minute piece, and I played with them live. And I was supposed to play with them again only like a couple of months ago in Monte Carlo, of all places.
Ah, shit.
Because we had a booked gig for this specific piece again in 2020, September 2020, but then the pandemic stopped everything, including this, of course. So it was canceled and it was postponed, and then like a little bit more than 2 years later, it finally happened. But then they released a new album, and when it finally happened now, like a couple of months ago, this specific piece was not part of the program anymore, because they included new pieces from the new album and stuff like that. So I did not perform with them at that point. Yeah.
I hope you don't take this the wrong way. I try to like form my words here, but because to me you are one of, if not the absolute best drummers in the world. And not only because of the stuff that you have played on and plays on, but also I follow you on Instagram, and this quirky stuff that you post on Instagram and social medias, just trying to, feels like you always try to push the instrument and your art forward, and it's so cool to see that. I mean, 55 years old and you are still hungry for. Am I wrong here, or is it like that? Or are you still feeling like you want to evolve?
Yeah, I mean, first, thanks for your compliment. I think that, I mean, if you take a look on YouTube today, you can find, when it comes to speed and muscles, anyone is faster than the other, and everyone is more technical than the other. So I can't even grab some stuff that people plays. And honestly speaking, I'm not into it either, because but it's part of the, when I was 10, when I was 12, 13, I imitated Buddy Rich, and the only thing I cared about was the ability to play this cool thing that Buddy Rich plays. And I bought his albums, and if there wasn't a drum solo, I put the album away. Now 30 years later, or even just 15, 20 years after that, I don't strive for that at all. Like I tried to release music, and I tried to, you look for other things when you're 55 than when you're 20, and yeah, YouTube and videos around there is very much focused on, wow, 13-year-old Chinese girl play Rush covers, or stuff like that, Yeah. And so, but thanks anyway, because yeah, I do try to, I did some stuff yesterday with I don't know if you saw that, but I show you. I mean, sometimes drums gets me super bored, because I mean, it's not. Again, when you were 15 and there was a new pair of signature drumsticks by Steve Gadd available at the drum store, it was like like this, And now much later, it's not like that at all. It can be super boring to read about new China cymbals that it puts me to sleep almost, like,
okay.
So I'm not. It everything changes, you know. So, but I still, I mean, I play, I record a lot. I work a lot with sounds and microphones, and I try to make music, you know. And this is my latest addition to my studio.
Ah, cool.
And it's like, so I do. When I saw this online, it's the first time I see like a harp, like a sitar, but also that includes guitar, like a guitar neck, and $100 or something. It's like I'm just gonna buy it. I can't play guitar, I can't play sitar either, but I have, as long as you hear things in your mind, and you know, it's like you can sample, sometimes you need one note, and if that note has a specific sound, it gives you ideas, and then you can record that and put a loop on that, and little by little music happens. And so that's
so inspiration can come everywhere and become a sort of seed just growing to a flower or whatever.
And that is still my brain is still like in an ADH, was it ADHD mode, just looking for things, I think, and that's still a fact. I almost never just go into my studio and just play drums, but I get stuff, I record stuff, and I make stuff, and but a lot of things that I do in my studio is also I record for people that sends me music. You know, they I have this service where people can send me music, and I record drums and I send back.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's something that I do a lot when I'm not touring. You know, so it's very nice because I have this little place, and my house is just, you know, 5 seconds walk from here. It's like a little cabin in the garden of my house. So I can go out and I can record it. Sometimes I record 7 hours nonstop, and sometimes I can only record for 25 minutes because I need to do something in the house with the dogs or whatever. But so and the social medias you talked about, I just I don't know, it's something I always like to do. You know, you get an impulse, you put your phone up and you do something, and it's also a way for me to communicate with people, also to say that, like, I do this, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
And then maybe someone likes it, and it will be, and it turned out that I think that sometimes it's obvious that some calls or requests that I get is because of somebody understands that, okay, he's doing that, or okay, he's doing that too, or maybe we can, okay, he's doing that, or stuff like that, you know. And then it gives me work, basically.
I guess a way of promoting yourself, but you can promote yourself in different ways, and I think you do a hell of a good job in being yourself and being honest and true to the sort of the art form. I listened to an interview that a Swedish guy did with you, and you said that I might paraphrase here, but you said that it's tiresome to not get all the gigs because in a way it feels like people assume that you only do freaky stuff and you don't get work because and you want to work and you have to, you know, earn money. Do you still feel that? This is a couple of years ago, I guess, or
I think it's still the case, and I think and this is not only for me. I think that everyone gets put in a certain genre by other people, you know. So like the guy who is playing the bass with in the most famous Swedish TV programs, like there is this show and this TV program, there is a band back of the TV show. It's almost always the same people playing, you know.
because they are in this world of that's what they do, and when there is a new TV show, the same people will mainly often get the request again, and then same people are placed in metal and classical music again. So
where are you placed? I mean, you play on everything. Like, you're definitely not a metal drummer, but you can play metal drums.
Yeah, I think that only because I did a couple of things makes other people think that we can't ask him, because first of all, the Frank Zappa connection is only by itself is something, so then you come to the conclusion that if you have something sounding like Rolling Stones or AC/DC, and you can't ask him because he won't be interested. But the truth is, I mean, I can't talk for other musicians that did similar things to me, but I happen just to like different things. I don't like all music, but I saw Tom Waits, for instance, when he was in Stockholm in '97, and that was one of the best concerts I've seen in my life. And there is nothing that reminds me of Frank Zappa at all. I mean, it's just nothing.
Oh.
But it was super cool, and it would be. I love to record stuff like that. In fact, because that I recorded like a Fredrik's solo album, the Meshuggah guitarist.
Yes.
Because I did that, and because I play with Frank, I tend to receive requests with music that's super, super complicated, super messy, with 10,000 time signatures and music that I really don't even like, because it's too much. It's too much stuff. I feel too old when I listen to it. It's like, no, turn it off. I'm get tired and like that.
Okay.
That happens, and that's because of those albums that I did in the past, I think. But so one of my favorite things to record is when there is like super basic, and because then you have to. I mean, sometimes simple music is even harder to record than complicated music, because you need to find a character, and you need to find a special vibe thing like that. Like first time I recorded for Devin Townsend, it was funny. It's almost more than 10 years ago. He wrote to me before we even met. He wrote to me and said that I'm looking for a drummer that can. He had two questions for me. He asked me, "Can you play spooky country drums?" was the first question. And then the second request was, "Can you play quiet?"
Okay. Yeah.
And it was like, this is such a cool email. And I said, I don't know if I can play spooky country drums, but I think I can play quiet, which means, I mean, with dynamics is what that means, because I can play loud, but also I can play quiet. So he sent me a couple of MP3s, and I recorded for that. I remember I put a towel on the snare drum to make it super dry, and it was some kind of beat like, and I remember the music made me feel like something like you were riding some kind of horse wagon, and it was like almost the wagon was falling apart. So I remember I played a beat that sounded like it was not perfectly together, but with a little like stuff like that, because that's what I heard when I heard his music, and also remembering that he said spooky country drums. So I sent that back to him, and he was just super excited, and he sent another 10, 15 songs, and that ended up as one of his side projects, this album called Casualties of Cool. And so this is just a lot of recordings with snare drums with towels and just super basic. But I love to record that album, and so generally speaking, I like to record simple stuff, but simple in that sense that it's not like a million things happening, but sometimes it's not easier just because it's simple, because you still need to find that vibe, that edge to things, and that's something that I really like. I'm recording now to a guy named Aman Kosla, which guitar player from Brooklyn, and he's sending me this. It's just, you know, nothing, but it's super nice. I really like to, you know, because I have a lot of different microphones on the drums. I change stuff. I put microphones under blankets and stuff to make it really, and then suddenly it sounds in a way that it carries the music a lot, you know. So yes, that's something that I really like to do.
I when I talked to Peter Brynelsson, he said that he's a little bit tired of people talking about the first Ragnarok record, because in a way, when you he feels like when you go to him and say that they love Ragnarok's first record, it's the best thing that he did, it's like he's not good anymore. So like when he was 19 years old, that was his peak, but in his mind he's better now than ever. But people keep talking about that. So segueing into Soul Niger, is that how you pronounce it? Soul Niger. Do you said that you get requests of playing that? I mean, it's in I don't know in underground terms, but it's a classic sort of. Is it metal record? Yeah. Are you tired of talking about that and the recording?
No, I think that it was a wonderful experience. Or actually, the first moment of that experience was not nice, because I mean, I love the album and I like Fredrik a lot, but the truth is, when we first started to record that album in '97, at the time he was working at the Swedish radio in Umeå.
Yeah.
And because of that, he had access to the big studio with all the microphones and stuff. So he thought that we could record there and use all the cool Neumann microphones and stuff like that. But only if we could record during nighttime. So when all people went from the radio station by 8 o'clock in the evening, and then they let us in, but then they alarmed the door so we couldn't get out. That was the condition, you know, like if we could do that, we could work there. So, but it turned out it was not the perfect thing to us to record like 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m. and stuff like that, not being allowed to leave the building and stuff. It was kind of claustrophobic. And I realized also that I prepared, you know, in my studio for the album, and I thought I had it more or less together. But then when we finally started to record, I felt that shit. It doesn't feel, I don't get it. I don't get the beats exactly as I want, and this part doesn't work at all. And shit, now I remember my fingers started to swollen up, and I hit too hard, and the volume that I had in my speaker headphones was insane, because I had a problem to follow the click track to the beats, and the beats were so complicated. So I remember I had a crazy volume. My brother came to the studio to visit us one day, and when he heard the level of the speakers, he got super mad at me and said, "You can't have this volume, you're fucking crazy. You destroy your ears." And it was true, you know. But so we tried 2 days in a row, like 2 nights in a row, I think, and then we sort of we just had to realize the truth, which was shit. This it doesn't work. It doesn't work. I don't know my parts good enough, and I'm not. It doesn't feel comfortable doing this by nighttime and whatever, you know. If I have nailed my parts just like that, it wouldn't. The night thing wouldn't be a problem at all. But so we sort of. After a while, we asked, shit, this doesn't work, we have to give up. And I remember Fredrik was almost crying when he called me the day after, and still like wanting to do this. And I felt so bad, because I was super excited to do this, and just
didn't get the parts together, but then I checked the parts again a little more, and then we recorded in my brother's studio just on normal business hours, if I say so.
Yeah.
And then it worked, and and I mean, I'm not a metal drummer, like not like a regular one. At least I love what Fredrik is doing, and I love what he did with this album. And when I heard that all those riffs, it made me want to play, and for sure. I mean, when I heard it got me excited, because he also wanted me. I mean, he wanted me to play because I'm not like a classical metal drummer, because that's the element that he wanted on this album, some kind of mix between metal playing but coming from like Alan Holdsworth fusion stuff. That's what the spice that he wanted to have on his album. So, and we grew up, as we said before, we grew up in the same town, so he knew about me and I knew about him. So it was a natural meeting, and even to this day, people still email me about that album, and it's still, the from the TV education tram.
Yeah.
Still, and it's funny because this album, I even released the album myself on my own label at the time, which was not, I mean, it was like not a really like a real working record company, which with everything that means. It was just me and my friend Per, who was a big fan of music, and we wanted to release albums because nobody else wanted to release what me and Mats did, and nobody wanted to release our side projects. So we decided to, we do it ourselves, And it's funny because without any distribution or like almost no contacts, we were still able to spread this album quite well. But the album made that work by itself, more or less, because the word of mouth spread, and then people in Metallica and Tool and Rush mentioned this album as an underground favorite. I know.
Yeah.
It started something, and much later, maybe like 15 years. In 2013, I was in the US, and the album was recorded in '97, so that's a long time after. As people said that, well, you know that this album started some kind of. It was partly what started this gent thing.
Yeah.
And I never heard the term at all, gent. I never heard it. Even the name. I didn't know what it meant or anything. Oh, don't you know? He said, no, I don't know what it is. What is it? And then somebody explained for me what that is, and was and also he's tried to convince me that this album was at least part of that music happening or something.
Yeah. Definitely. I've seen or heard interviews with Thomas Hake talking about the term gent, but I mean, Meshuggah, they released their first in '95, something like that, or was it '94?
Yeah, the first one that was like a mini album or something before.
Yeah. But the Story Race Improved, didn't that come in '95? Like so.
Something like that, yeah.
I mean, and this coming out in 1997, it has to have had an impact on the Meshuggah sound that later on stood as forefathers of the gent sound. I don't know. I'm not a metalhead like people are metalheads. Most of my collection is jazz and psych and prog.
Yeah.
So, but I have a huge sort of respect for the genre, especially the music that tries to push forward.
Yeah.
And I mean, you have a documentary about yourself.
Yeah.
There's a documentary about Morgan Ågren out there, and I remember when I saw it, I was just blown away because you visited the house where they recorded the Trout Mask replica, didn't you?
Yeah.
So you stood outside and I mean, how now we segue into the sort of Zappa freak sound, but I want to start with talking about this. Has that also been a part of sort of the Morgan Ågren sound?
I don't know if it's part of the sound, but Captain Beefheart and the Magic Band was a super big influence on me. I was they were top 3, you know, for me. Like
Okay.
For some periods, you listen to Alan Holdsworth most, and then Frank Zappa most, and then King Crimson most, and then Captain Beefheart most. Like it goes in and out. But for sure, I think that in the same way as Magma is a band that's super unique and there is nothing you can compare with them on any level almost. The same goes for Captain Beefheart, of course. The way, I bought books about him and read about him, and actually, I think that in 97 or something, I did the same thing because I managed to do the interview with Christian Wander for Modern Drummer magazine.
Yep.
But then I also, when I had my peak in the Captain Beefheart music, I felt that maybe I can also find an excuse to talk with Suton Rollo, you know, because Suton, the guitar player on that album and many other Beefheart albums, I saw him was when I got my first computer. I saw shit. I can just type Suton Rollo and I end up on some homepage and there is a contact. It's just crazy. I can email Suton Rollo. That's insane. Yeah. And then I came up, wait, we have this magazine called Fuss in Sweden.
Yes.
I don't know if it's existing anymore, but
I don't think so.
Yeah. Right. It's called Fuss, and it was about guitars and guitarists and guitar music, you can say. So I contacted them and said that, would you be interested to write about a guitar player that too few knows about, that was a part of an incredibly unique band? Yeah. Because I have his email and I can do an interview. And the same, it happened the same thing as with Christian. They said yes. And then I called Suton Rollo, Bill Harkler Roll. And I managed to record a phone interview by taping a sort of microphone to because this was before iPhones and stuff like that.
Or Zoom.
yeah, much before. So I called him and we spoke for more than an hour, and super nice. And so, yeah, I was really into that. And I also remember one specific memory that I have was when I was on tour with Fleshquartet and Fredrik Thordendal, which was an amazing vocalist, which has a lot of like a connection, you can say, to Captain Beefheart and Tom Waits with his way of singing, you can say, you know. And we talked about it turned out that Freddie was, when he was a kid, he for a couple of years, a couple of months, he didn't speak. He lost his ability to speak. Something traumatic happened to him, and then he told me that when he heard Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention the first time, this thing went away and he started to be able to speak again. And and that was like at the same time as he also discovered Beefheart. And I remember that when we were on tour at one point, I think it was Freddie that told me about this album called Lick My Decals Off Baby. Yeah. And I found it in a record store while we were on tour, and it was incredible. Just the first two songs, the title track Lick My Decals Off and Dr. Dark from that album, just incredible music in all, like nothing you heard sounds like that at all. And wow, and you know, I remember that, so it was such a great experience. And some years later I was able to get a noisy VHS copy of Beefheart live, and then when we were on tour together with Fleshquartet, I brought the tape as a surprise for Freddie. We were sitting behind the concert hall in the tour bus, and I told Freddie, I have a Beefheart live on VHS. He said, "Ah!" And then we saw those music from Troutmask and Lick My Decals performed live on VHS, and this was also long before YouTube, so that was super cool. So yeah, I when we did this the documentary that was made, like a portrait on me by Carl King, I wanted to go to the house because he knew that I liked Beefheart a lot, so he said we can go to the house, and that was also amazing. So we went there, and it's funny because I remember when we stopped outside this mythic house, which has all those stories about the band members being locked inside, not being able to leave the house, and eating super little food, and getting pushed by Beefheart in being able to play music parts, and also, I'm not sure if you heard all the stories, but he also had lectures about how to dress and how to. He were telling the musicians how the only proper way to hold a cigarette was so he teach them how to hold a cigarette, and this crazy things, but I wanted to go there, and we stopped the car outside, and only a few minutes later one of the neighbors of that house on the other side of the street happened to come out to his car, and so we started to talk with him, and excuse me, is because we were curious, is there how many people knows about what happened in this house? And he said, yeah, it's quite well known, at least in this area, and maybe every week one or two people, or a couple of people a month still comes there, and just to look at the house still, so yeah,
that's so cool. I brought a Zappa record also because it's hard not to talk about Zappa because few people have played with Zappa and lived in his house for a week like you have. So it's a stupid question, but how was it? Obviously it has to have shaped your life incredibly. I don't know where I want to go with this.
Yeah, it was super special because so for people who might not know, I should mention what happened the years before, because Frank Zappa came to Stockholm the last time in 1988. Me and Mats, we had a band that played only Zappa's music called Substitute, and we were big fans. And when Frank came to Stockholm last time in '88, we wanted to meet him as fans, the big fans we were, and we managed to get a hold of his tour manager, and sort of we got told that, okay, you come to the sound check, and after the sound check I will let you know whether or not Frank is in the mood or if he has time to meet you guys. I can't guarantee anything, but make sure that you get into the concert hall and hide somewhere, because we were not actually, we couldn't go into the concert hall either because it's protected, but so we had no guest pass or anything, but we went to the Johannesholm next to the Globe, and by the garage or something, I took Mats, and finally we ended up inside the hall, no guards, nothing, And then we were sitting there, they had the sound check, and after the sound check we were waiting for, will somebody come and look for us or will they not, and then some guy started to do like this, and so obviously he agreed to meet us, and that was an amazing meeting because this is 88, by May 88, so I'm
only 20. I'm 20 and Mats is 17.
Yeah.
So we get to meet our big idol, and he was in a very good mood, and it was fantastic. So we went backstage and we started to talk, and he was like also curious. So how come you have a band play my music? Where are you from? Where is Umeå? Is it north, up north, and blah blah blah? And so what songs did you play? And we started to talk about that, drumming, tap, banging on my knees and whistling. And so after a while, he says that, well, I'm amazed that two young musicians from a town called Umeå knows my music so well. Because the fact is also that Matt started to listen to Frank when he was 7, which is quite unique. Nobody listened to Frank Zappa when they were 7, but Matt did. And by the time he was 10, he had all albums of Frank Zappa, which is insane, for 10 years old. And he memorized a lot of this music by that, more or less, as a kid, And one moment that I will never forget was when Frank was, because again, he was in a very nice mood, and so he got a bit touched by this meeting, because I mean, especially Mats, because he knowing that he started to listen since age 7. It's I mean, even if you're Frank Zappa, that's touching to yeah. So Frank says to Mats, you have listened to me way too much. You have to know how I look like after all these years, Frank goes. And then he grabs Mats' hand and he put Mats' hand in his face. So there is a little table. I'm sitting in a sofa, and on the other side of the table is Mats and Frank. So Frank grabs Mats' hand, puts it in his face, and say, "You have to know how I look like after all these years." And then he puts his head back in the sofa and he closes his eyes, and then he says, "Don't forget the famous nose," he says. And I'm sitting there like,
yeah,
how can this happen? And Mats started to super gently feeling the face of Frank Zappa, and Frank Zappa is just sitting there with a big smile like this, while Matt's finger was going down the face like this. Amazing. Never forget that. It was such a beautiful thing to do. Of Frank to do that, it was magic, And then I prepared a cassette tape for Frank. I gave it to him. I said, "Here is some of our music, and in fact, one of your songs is included in this recording."
Yeah.
And he goes, "So which one?" And I told him it's a song called "To Mercy Dween," which wasn't officially recorded at the time. So he said, how come you know this song? Because it wasn't released on the album. And then this was a sensitive subject, because he didn't like bootlegs.
Oh.
But I told him we have it on bootleg, and then he said that maybe we should do something, he said. And then he took a pen and paper and started to make the song list. And now he was in this sweet, nice mood again. So he asked me and Mats, like we were members of the band. He said, "So hey guys, what songs should we start with tonight?" How about? And then he goes, "How about Black Page?" Yeah, let's start with Black Page tonight. I said, okay. And then when he came to the middle of the set, he told, with this pen and paper, he said that, "Okay, guys, we're going to play Big Swifty tonight. And in the middle of Big Swifty, there is an open section where anything can happen. Would you like to come up and play To Mercy Dween, the song that was on the tape? Would you be interested to come up and just play that song in the middle of Big Swifty?" And when he asked us this, I had no drumsticks. There was no time for sound checks. People was already, you could hear all the people already inside. No time for anything. It was just like, do you want to play or do you not, And we were, not smart enough to say no. So we said yes, And so he said, "Okay, so go out, and when you hear the theme of Big Swifty starting, you have about 5-10 minutes. So when we start to play, leave your seats and get prepared and get ready and wait for me behind the stage."
And then we finished the conversation. We went out to our seats as a regular visitor of the concert, knowing that in like 1.5 hours we will be up there playing unrehearsed in front of 10,000 people. And the other fact is that song, To Mercy the Wind, we played maybe once, and that was the actual recording that I gave him, because it was like an second encore of some live concert that we did, just me and Mats together. And so how the fuck is that song? And I remember when the concert was starting, I was screaming in Mats' ears, how is the second part of the is it da 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 da?
Yeah.
No, it's like da 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 da. It's like and then 5 minutes later, how was it again? Is it da 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 da? No, it's da 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 da. Okay. Try to memorize. And then the time went on, and then suddenly they started to play the theme of Big Swifties. We had to stand up and leave our seats and trying to get behind stage. And when we came to the stage, there is fences and guards and stuff. And I told him, excuse me, we are supposed to play. So, yeah, sure, baby, he said. Yeah. No, but it's true. And then he didn't open the gate. It was he didn't believe it. And then some other guy came behind him and started to wave like this. Oh. And he said, "Oh, really? You are really supposed to play?" And then he moved the gate, and we were let inside backstage waiting. And that was also funny, because now we saw the sound check. We had this meeting with him, and many hours went by. So by the time we sat behind the stage, I felt like, shit, I haven't been on the toilet since this morning. And any second from now, he can, shout us, introduce us. So I didn't dare to leave Matt sitting on the case. But after a while, I felt like, shit, I have to pee, otherwise I can't play. I said to myself, okay, wait, I just have to. And then I ran into the toilet. And when I opened up the door from the toilet, I was like, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 seconds of running time to get to Mats. But so I open up, and as soon as I open up the door, I hear Frank Zappa's voice in the room. Now, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm just... And Mats is sitting there totally alone on the case behind the stage, and I'm not even there, And
I mean, 17 years old and blind.
Yeah.
It has, and Frank Zappa is saying your name out in the speakers.
Yeah. I think that Mats would have been happier knowing that I wasn't somewhere else.
Yeah.
But I was not too far away, so I ran and I grabbed Mats' arm, and then we come up on stage. I also remember, if you can hear Frank on the recording, like, ladies and gentlemen, now let me introduce you to him. And then he has a piece of paper, because he can't remember our names, almost like Mats Öberg and Morgan Ågren. Where are they? He says. And I come up with Mats, and then we say something like, the cool thing is that the band plays some kind of reggae groove, so it's not silence, like what's going to happen now. It's a cool vibe, so we can come up and nothing has to be rushed. And Frank goes, how are you guys? And we say something like in the microphone, and then you want to take him over to the piano? Yeah, I say, and I take Mats and I go to the piano, and then the keyboard player at the time, Bobby Martin, he just said that here is the Roland blah 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 DX7, Yamaha DX7 digital piano, good luck, he said, and he stepped back like this. And then when I had Mats saved behind the keyboard, I started to run behind the drums, and some roadie gave me a pair of drumsticks, and that was also like, I wonder what's the stick's gonna be, but it was almost more or less the exact same as I played myself. And then the drummer, as soon as he saw me, he left the seat, so I got up and I continued playing this reggae groove that the band was playing. And then we sort of went out from that reggae groove, and we started to improvise like we always been doing, me and Matt. So we played this and the bass player played with us, so we kept improvising for some, I don't know, little bit more than a minute, 1.5 minutes something. And then when we were happy with that little improvisation, we went directly into the piece that he asked us to play. And then when that was finished, we just, and then Frank started the band on the next part in the previous song, and it was amazing because at that point, I don't think we ever played better in our whole lives. so it was super timing because, we were up playing with Frank Zappa. We were 20 and 17, and of course the adrenaline.
Yeah.
Frank was just a few meters in front of my drums, and I remember that he was standing with his face towards me like this. He had a conductor stick, which was in pause. It was just standing like this, and I remember while we were playing, it's like now or never, So you play like the best you can, and I managed to see Frank with a big smile, and that face, when I saw that face when we play, it gave me unnatural powers or something, because I could tell that he liked what we did, which gave me so much energy,
Yeah.
So we played and it was like amazing, and we finished, we went off stage and they continued the concert. We went back to our seats, and then like incredibly, and then for people who listen to Frank's music live, people know that no matter what songs he finished with, he has this thing that he always do at the very last chord on whatever song they finish with. They Ray White, Steve Vai, Terry Bozzio, Scott Tunis, thanks for coming to the show. Hope you like it. Good night. Boom, like that every time. And this time we were back in our seats in the audience, and I can't remember which song they finished with, but they do this. Frank is doing the same thing again. Bobby Martin, Terry Bozzio, blah 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 blah. And he said, and then he grabs this piece of paper again and said, Mats Öberg and Morgan Ågren, thanks for coming to the show. Hope you like it. Like that again. And we were in the audience listening to Frank Zappa saying thanks for the concert, and introducing the band members with us included, which was also like unreal for us at that moment, being 20 and 17, and everything just happened. All this happened within a couple of hours,
Yeah.
So, and then after the concert, it was incredible. And after the concert, we went back to the backstage again, and now it started to get also a bit like serious, because he said that because we knew there were some big problems in the band with fights and between band members. It was a really bad situation with the whole band, and Frank had some serious ideas to quit the band, form a new band, and finish the end part of the tour with a new band, something like that. I have been told, Mike Keneally told me about this many years later, that Frank had an idea to do the last leg of the tour only with Scott Tunis on bass, Mike Keneally on guitar, and me and Mats. That was an idea that Frank had, but it never happened because he got sick in cancer, But when we were behind the stage now after the concert, he said that he I think he wanted to make us tremble a little bit, because he put his eyes on us and he said, well, I need a new drummer and keyboard players, and he would look at us like this, with his eyes. Obviously, he was talking to us, but it was a very special moment, and but because he was talking to us, obviously we knew that, okay, so he's considering at some point, at some level, I don't know, to include us. It's obvious. That's and how that would happen, in what way, I have no idea. But that's what he said, and then he wrote down his telephone number and gave it to me, and said that don't share this with anyone. He said, and then he left. So after this, every time the phone called, I was hoping that maybe it could be some booking agent for Frank or Frank himself or whatever. I don't know. But that didn't happen. So after 2 years, I think I decided, okay, I have to find out will something happen in what way and how, all these questions,
Yeah, it has to be tough to just sit around waiting for a bloody phone call for 2 years, like, and never letting go of the hope of being a member in Zappa's band. I mean, shit.
I know, because that's the last words he said. I couldn't leave the hope. I couldn't just ignore the hope, because he said that, and at the same time I know that this is so little chance that it will actually happen. Even whatever he said, will it really happen, you know? But then after 2 years, almost 2 years, I called Barking Pumpkin, his record company, and then just trying to find something out. Did my letters arrive? Do you know how I do to reach Frank? Blah blah blah. And then it turns out that the guy who answers the phone at Barking Pumpkin mail order, when I said my name and I'm calling from Sweden, and he directly knew who I were. Like, yeah, I know about you. You play this concert in Sweden. It's like, how the fuck can he know?
Yeah.
Because he's not in the band. He's just working at sending T-shirts and albums out. Yeah, we heard all about it, he said. And it's like, this is crazy. So my hope started to grow again, you know. And then I said, I don't know how to do. Should I write to him? And I sent letters and stuff like, but letters never reach him. You have to come here, he said. Okay, so how, like, what do you mean? And then he said, you can sleep on my sofa, just make sure you come over here and I will arrange a meeting in one way or another. So I bought a ticket, and then I came to Santa Monica. And when I came to his house, he had the door key under the carpet. So I just went into his house. I never met him. And then there was the paper with telephone numbers to people. He thought, you have to call these people so they can sort of contact Frank and maybe make this happen.
Yeah.
So I called Mike Keneally, which was on the list, and he called Frank. And 2 days later, Frank invited me to the house, and Mike Keneally picked me up. So it took me only 2 days. I was there, you know.
Yeah.
And which was also amazing, of course. I'm still quite young, and Mike Keneally picks me up, and we're going up to Beverly Hills with his car, and we come to this house. There is video cameras and this big like a prison, like
fence or something like that. Yeah, gate. Yeah.
And this camera, like Mike rings the doorbell, and he says, "It's Mike and Morgan," and the door opens, and we go up in this like chairs and stairs, and this big door opens up. So and there he was, you know, and so we were just hanging and listening to music and talking and stuff like that. And that's when he told me that he asked me, "Did Mike tell you that I'm sick?" And I said, "No." What do you mean? "Well, I have cancer," Frank said.
So this is you are 22 now, about 22, 23. This is
right.
So this is in 1990, or is it
90? This was November 90, I think.
Okay.
And so he said that, I have a prostate cancer, and I said, okay, well, so what's happening? And he said that it's shrinking, it's getting smaller. So I thought that, so at that moment it felt like, okay, it's under control, it will go away. But it came back and it got worse and stuff like that, you know. So it was really hard to fix, you know. But then he said that he had a couple of projects that was offered to him. Like there was one project in Japan where they wanted Frank to come down and perform with an orchestra, I think, and that's the first time now. This evening he said that, would you, Mats, be happy to be a part of that if that project happens? Yeah, of course, I said. And then he said, I'm going to have a meeting with the Japanese people in a couple of days, and I'll let you know what happens. So that was like, shit, maybe something will happen, you know. And then before the evening was done, Frank asked me, so where are you sleeping? He said. And then I said, I need to sleep at a hostel tonight because my friend has he had a date that night, so I couldn't be. So I said I have to check into his hostel.
Okay.
Which made Frank say, "You don't need to stay at the hostel. You can stay at the guest house." So that's when he sort of, you know, my Keneally went home and we went to bed, and Frank showed me the guest house, which is also a special memory because we were. His whole family was in Australia, I think. So it was just him. And the guest house is in the back side of the house and like outside in the back, like in the backyard. And there was some problem with the electricity. So he puts up like a cigarette lighter and he walks in this small like walkway to the guest house with only a cigarette light like this, totally dark, like black dark. And he's watch the steps, he said, and we go like this and he goes like this. And I'm going just behind Frank Zappa in his garden on my way to his guest house where I'm supposed to stay, you know. So it was another amazing moment. Yeah. But then we came to the guest house and the room, the electricity worked there, so I could put the light on. And then he went back to the house. After that, and he said, you can stay here as long as you want, sort of, you know, knowing that I will go back to Sweden only in a couple of days, you know. But then I didn't see him much, you know, and it was super special for me because I'm at home in Frank Zappa's house. I want to talk with him. Maybe who knows? He maybe has something we can record. We can do something, you know. Yeah. But he was mixing the Yellow Shark album, and he was super into that. And so a few times I left the guest house going into the kitchen. When you come back to the house, you go directly into the kitchen, and no people there, nothing to eat. Frank Zappa is working. I don't know. Can I open the fridge? Can I drink something? I don't know. How should I do? And I didn't want to leave because I'm home at Frank Zappa's house. And suddenly I hear him coming up, and he's like, hello. And then he'd have a cup of coffee and a cigarette. And we have a super nice chat for 15 minutes, like one chat a day, maybe two chats a day, and then which always ended, okay, I got to work, he said, and then he go back. Yeah. And I was starving and I didn't know, so I managed to stay there for like 3 days, and then I felt I have to leave now. I can't. Nothing more will happen. I had some chats with him and it's all nice and stuff, but so I said, okay, this was super nice, but I'm probably gonna leave now. And then but then this project in Japan didn't happen for some reason. But then shortly thereafter there was this other project that happened called Zappa's Universe in New York. With Steve Vai and Dale Bozzio and all these people. So we did 4 concerts in New York. This was at the end of 91. Okay. Super cool. And then Frank called us again to be a part of another project also in New York, which was more his orchestra music. So it was announced as Lincoln Center, Avery Fisher Hall, Symphony Orchestra playing the music of Frank Zappa, also including a rocking, as they call it, the rocking teenage combo, which was like the bass guitar, keyboards, and drums with the orchestra. So we got asked to do that. And that was in March 92, I think. And Frank was in New York. For both those projects that we did in New York, he was ill, not being able to be there. So he was in LA. So we had contact over the phone, and he was still sort of in charge of stuff, but he wasn't able to be there. And then shortly after the second thing we did at this classical thing, he died. You know, like only like not long after. So yeah, but it was, I mean, for us it was still I mean, even if never like a regular official big tours with us printed in the program and stuff like that, even if that never happened, it was still for sure a dream coming through, because we did play, you know. And there is all this stuff when we did the rehearsals also in Joe's garage in Los Angeles with Frank, you know. That was also incredible stuff that happened there for you know, that you will never forget. Like yeah.
Have you had any contact with the family? I mean, shortly after that, or after, like with Dweezil and Moon?
Yeah, a little bit, not very much, but I remember that I called Gail, who was still alive by then. Like I called her like a couple of weeks after Frank passed away, just to say something, you know. But and that was also super special because I had prepared a VHS tape for Frank because me and Mats' very first TV show that we did in '81, we played in a big TV show called Hemma efter 18 with Sivert Öholm.
Yeah,
we were guests and we performed the Frank Zappa song at that TV program, and it's really touching because also Mats is doing this. Mats is being interviewed with a classical piano player in the beginning, which is one of the most funniest interviews ever made, I think. And it's very touching because if you see all the questions, Mats' love for Frank Zappa's music is super easy to see, you know, even that young, you know. So I felt that if I can make Frank see this, it would be amazing, you know, because it must be touching for him, for sure, you know. So I called a friend that I knew could make copies from European VHS to American NTSC system. Yeah. So I got a copy and I sent to the house. And I didn't know, you know, but now when I talk with Gail a couple of weeks after Frank passed, we talked for, I don't know, 5-10 minutes. And just before we hang up the phone, she says to me, yeah, and by the way, Morgan, Frank watched the video, he said. She said,
way, shit.
And he loved it, he said.
Yeah.
And that was also like,
yeah.
Because if you see the video, you can just Google it, check it on YouTube. You will understand why Frank would love to see this video with kids playing his music and speaking about Frank being the big influence on a kid like Mats was at the time, you know. So it was so nice to know that he actually got to see it.
Yeah.
So we had a little contact like that, and after Frank passed away, we did a couple of projects with different symphony orchestra around Europe who decided to perform Frank's music in different shapes and forms, but included like rock drummer and rock keyboard with the orchestra. So we went to Denmark, Germany, France, stuff like that for a couple of projects. And some emails with Dweezil maybe, and I actually sent an email to Moon Unit only a couple of months ago because I happened to see some big interview with her for the first time in a long time, and because it seems like they grew up in a very special situation with the family, and I think she has been very sincere about how it was to grow up in this family. So I had to write her like thumbs up for your interview. It was some interview on like a talk, not a talk show, but like a pod kind of thing, you know.
Yeah. I think I remember when it came.
Yeah,
read something about it.
I don't have much contact, like no, other than that, no.
I'm gonna let you go soon because I've already taken an hour from you. But I've been thinking in our conversation here about Alan Holdsworth. I think you have said his name like 3 times, and it just struck me like it feels like Alan Holdsworth is a musician's musician in a way. What is it that is so special about Alan Holdsworth's musicianship and records?
I think it's the compositions. I remember the first time I heard Road Games, which was the first album I got by him. It changed my life. The chords, the melodies, and everything. It's just you step into a new world that you didn't know existed, and when you come into this world, this other world that we know about disappears. It's like you come in, you enter this incredibly beautiful world of music and notes that for me it's hopeful. It's like there's some hope there. It's super beautiful, and I mean obviously he's like as a guitar player, like playing, his playing abilities is like nobody else, like nobody else's, you know. But I'm not I understand that his playing abilities is beyond anything else, but that is not important for me in the same way. But his solos still are just, you know, and yeah, he's one of those guys that has the ability to play. Sometimes he plays super fast, but I can't even hear if it's fast. I just, something happens when you do this. It's not like, oh shit, he can really play fast. It's not that. It's more like, oh, when he does that, something happens with my
it's like a force almost.
Yeah. It's like yeah, he really gets me, you know. And I think the compositions and the way, just the tone, sometimes it can be just one note and he has this vibrato to the composition, you know. But also at the same time there were great musicians involved all the time. And
but I've only heard musicians that I know talked about him. All the prog nerds that I associate with, my friends that loves like progressive and jazz music. I never hear them sort of talk about Alan Holdsworth, but every time a musician talks about Alan Holdsworth, like their eyes is just lighting up. There's something with him and his music.
I think that, you know, I was 14, 15 when I heard Road Games, and you listen a lot to his music, and then maybe when you're 25, you don't listen almost at all for a couple of years. But now it's like so many years after, I still come back to his music. It's like, usually I don't get so much time to listen to music at home because time is limited, and when I work, I have to do stuff. So the only time I'm basically listening to music is when I walk my dogs, because then I have a nice wireless headphones and I can walk my dogs and then I can listen to music. So I go into Spotify or whatever, and then so sometimes okay, shit, I have to hear this. I have to listen to Road Games again.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like, I have the same experience
40 years later.
Yeah. Still holds up.
What would you say you have the same experience?
I have the same experience with Mahavishnu Orchestra and McLaughlin's playing, especially the first two, In Among the Flame and Birds of Fire.
Yeah,
amazing records. It's almost like I have the same feeling with Beatles. Sometimes I don't listen to it for a while, and when I go back to it, it's like I don't understand why I'm not listening to it all the time. It's the best music ever made.
I think it's cool that you listen in that way, because it's nice going in and going out, you know, because sometimes I like music like that. Even Magma, I mean, if I'm inside my house and I'm taking care of the laundry or whatever, I never put on music like Magma. It's takes too much energy, you know. It's like we have kids and dogs and in the house is too much noise already. So if I put on music, it will be super quiet Chet Baker or super quiet Melody Gardot or soft music that makes it a bit cooler to be like, you know. So, but suddenly, you know, you're on the dog walk or suddenly you're in my studio and you want to hear Magma live and nothing else, you know. You put Magma live on, it's like shh. Same goes with the Beefheart. I don't listen for long times, and then you just want to hear Trout Mask and nothing else, you know.
Yeah.
Same goes for like a band like Meshuggah. If you want to have that vibe, you can't listen to any other metal band. It has to be them, and if you want to achieve that vibe, you know. And I like that bands that have that. Now it's only them, and now it's not them for a couple of months, but then now it has to be them. It's cool, you know.
It's like a drug.
Yeah.
I'm gonna leave you now. This has been a fantastic experience. Thank you so much for the conversation and the stories.
Thanks for you too. I'm happy we managed to. We had to cancel a couple of times because of various things, you know. But now we finally did it.
Yeah. What's up? Do you have anything coming up now? Projects, concerts, you know, stuff like that?
Yeah, it's mainly recordings. I have Devin Townsend is doing a big tour now very soon, and I'm not going on the tour for various reasons, because when I toured with him in 19 and 20, he had a like 11-piece band with people from all over the world, and it got super expensive. So he's going from 12-piece to 4-piece band, and the band members are mainly from the same part of the world, and it's easier and it's also a good band, you know. So I won't tour now, but he will send me many gigabytes of recordings. I will record for him for almost a couple of months, maybe.
Okay.
So I will be busy mainly only recording, and then a few gigs, not much, like one gig with Mats in March, and with some projects. Yeah, it's very gigs. But
cool.
A lot of recordings, which I'm happy. You know, I can sit here and I don't know how much you can see here, but
I love it. Like shit, what a studio! There's stuff everywhere.
Yeah. So I have those. Let me turn on. So I have this drum kit here, which has a lot of different bass drums for different needs. Like here's like a high-pitched jazz bass drum, which I use sometimes. And here underneath those pillows and blankets are a super dead bass drum, which has 5 microphones inside for different sounds. And here's a big one, open like that, you know, and all the preamps and stuff is next to the wall there, and more microphones and more drums, and
such an awesome place, and CDs everywhere. I saw.
And I have my Buddha, and I have bass drum heads. Cool. I have a Kiss poster behind there.
And Coltrane also. Love Supreme.
Yeah, Coltrane and all this. And here I have Beefheart, and here is Zappa's guest house, by the way.
Shit. Just imagine all the people that's been, staying in that guest house.
Yeah, from like early when Mick Jagger and Rolling Stones and whoever was hanging, Zeppelin, and I don't know who.
I saw a documentary on Laurel Canyon, and I think that or if it was the David Crosby documentary, but they said that like Zappa was the founder of Laurel Canyon, like that sort of. Everyone went there, but Zappa was there already.
Yeah, yeah. And
So
his house people call his house the house. So
okay.
I'm going to the house. The house was Frank's house. So there was a lot of people hanging there, and I think Joni Mitchell was living as a neighbor, and just creative people with the open minds were hanging, I think, a little bit. Yeah.
Amazing times. Well, thank you so much again, and hope to talk to you in the future. So
yeah,
bye.
hope to see you soon.